something a little bit curious, and that is making an avocado chocolate mousse. So if you have ever heard of this before, maybe you've tried it, or maybe you've thought, I'm not sure that avocado works in a chocolate mousse, but let me tell you, avocado, as we may or may not know, is a healthy fat, which means that it can be suitable as a substitute in something like a mousse for butter, which is exactly kind of what we're doing here. We're using our avocado in place of a butter or a cream. And it's a super simple recipe. It's only 6 ingredients, which is wonderful. And all we are going to do is put them in a blender, and we've got ourselves a lovely chocolate mousse. And I think that this is perfect for this time of year because it is getting to be close to Valentine's Day. And if you want to make something that not only makes your palate happy, but it makes your heart happy as well, then this is a great idea. So one thing that I have to do is I have to melt my, my chips. And I am just going to use a microwave. I am not a fan of using a double boiler. It absolutely is the chef's way to melt your chocolate because you get a slower melting process, which in turn means that you are going to have a more even melt on your chocolate. You usually get more of a shine. But for us home chefs, if we do it in the microwave, it's totally fine. So I'm going to go and put this in the microwave for about a minute and see where that leaves. And I'll be right back. I won't make you wait a whole minute. I'm just going to put it in and I'll be right back to talk about some of our other ingredients. Okay, so we're going to start off putting our avocados. Now, ideally, you would do this in a food processor because the surface area in a food processor is more spaced out. So for something like this, similar to a hummus, it's just easier to kind of blend something that's a little on the thicker side if you have a food processor. If not, the blender will work just fine. You just are definitely going to need your tamper handy so that way you can kind of push everything down so it hits the blade and everything gets mixed easily. So I am just going to put my knife on the avocado and I'm just going to twirl it around. Not even using a cutting board. That's the nice thing about avocados. And what I like about this recipe is it's a great recipe if you have those avocados that you feel like have maybe gone a little too far to be guacamole, and you're going to have a little bit of oxidation or browning, which occurs when oxygen hits certain fruits and it changes the compound of them and you get those browns. So this is actually a perfect example. So you may see this and think, oh man, my avocado's gone too far. I can't use this, but when it's this little amount of brown and gray, it doesn't affect the flavor all that much. So it's really fine to put it into the blender because we're going to be adding so much chocolate to this that it really isn't going to affect the flavor. And you're certainly not going to see your, not going to see that brown in color. So it's a nice way to use avocados that you're not 100% sure of what they look like in terms of your brownness or grayness. I always feel like people call it brown, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit more gray. Now I am going to scoop this out really well because we're going to do something with this shell later. Especially sometimes I'm a little bit haphazard when I cut them in half, but this one I did pretty good. So if you do it nicely, save those avocado shells. We'll do something with them. Okay, I'm going to put another 30 seconds on my chocolate. Alrighty, let's do our other avocado. Now, another great use for avocado in something, it's similar to a mousse, but they work really well if you cut wedges and you freeze them. They're wonderful to add creaminess in smoothies. Now, I know a lot of people, the standard creamy smoothie ingredient is bananas. However, I am not a banana fan, and I know that's a super unpopular opinion. And as a runner and a dietitian, that probably makes me very unpopular in those two communities, but it is what it is. And I have found that freezing avocados and putting them in smoothies, it adds such creaminess, and it's pretty similar. And you get that healthy fat as well, if you don't want to maybe add like peanut butter or something. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to add is my cocoa powder. And you just want the Baker's 100% cocoa powder, whatever kind. Sometimes it's called Dutch process. Any bread you want to use, just make sure it is that pure 100% cocoa powder, because we're gonna get those nice antioxidants, that nice chocolate flavor. Now, I've made this a couple times in the past few days for different things, and I have just remembered now, and what I want to tell you is make sure you put the cocoa powder in after you put in the avocado so that it's down by the blade and not sitting at the top. This is just gonna make it blend easier when we add some of our more liquid ingredients like the chocolate chips and like the maple syrup. Okay, one more hit on the chocolate. Okay, so our sugar component, I am using 100% maple syrup. So this is a nice recipe too, because you're using, some natural sugars. If what you have is agave nectar, honey, even if you want to do regular sugar, that was a 1/4 cup. You can absolutely substitute in a regular sugar if that's what you have on hand. It really, whatever works for you. So we have done our avocado, our cocoa powder, we have our maple syrup, and then I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. Perfect. All right. Wonderful. And the chocolate chips that I like to use, I'm going to call them out to you guys, because if you have anybody in your household who has allergies, which I do, my niece has dairy, egg, and nut allergies, I like to use these chocolate chips because they are free of the top 8 allergens, and using this means that it's a dessert that is good for people with allergies. It doesn't use butter or cream because we use those avocados. So it makes it a really nice opportunity to serve to your guests, your family members who have allergies. So I am mixing that together. Now it's a little hot, but I just want to show you just how melty and chocolatey it is. And again, we got that from the microwave. You don't have to go through the process of a double boiler. Just do it in those 30-second intervals so that you avoid having overdone chocolate or potentially burned. It can absolutely burn in the microwave. So just do it 30 seconds at a time, because everyone's microwave is different. So you never know how fast yours is going to go. You can also do it at a lower power. I don't do that because I've melted a lot of chocolate. So I know that usually 2 to 3 times works. So the recipe calls for 2 ounces of chocolate. I like to put a little bit more just because I love that rich chocolatey flavor. I also want to recommend, if you haven't tried this yet, using melted chocolate in your hot chocolate is a great idea. It really adds a certain richness that I think is sometimes lost when you use only cocoa powder. You can certainly use both. And I think we have a great hot chocolate bomb recipe that uses chai tea spices that's on our ShopRite.com website. And I highly recommend checking it out. If you're looking for maybe like a cozy cup of something. We also have a Valentine's Day hot chocolate recipe on ShopRite.com on the recipe shop. And it utilizes a raspberry puree to color the whipped cream pink. So you can maybe combine the two in addition to your chocolate mousse and have a really lovely chocolatey dessert. So the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to add a pinch of salt, 2 pinches, probably 1/8 teaspoon. And I am going to make sure we link to the recipe so you will have it available to you. But again, 5 ingredients, 6 maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 with the salt. So super simple. And then all we're going to do is just blend this together now. And I won't take you through the boring, arduous process of watching me blend and blend and blend. But what I am going to tell you is, like I said, putting that cocoa in after the avocado, not that that's a step in the recipe per se, but it's something I would recommend just because it does make it easier to blend. If you're doing it in a food processor, don't even worry, you're going to be fine. And putting that chocolate on top, it just is already sort of mixing everything together better than I've seen it mixed the couple of other times I made this week. All right, so I always start on low and just let it start mixing together. And then I'm just going to turn it up. Now, what's going to happen is after we blend it together, you're going to refrigerate it for an hour or 2. You can make it the day before and you can refrigerate it overnight. But if you wanted to, you can actually take this as is, and it works as an avocado chocolate buttercream, which is another super fun way to use it because you do get a very buttercream frosting-like consistency, which I'll show you in a second. All right. Terrific. So I could probably do a couple more pulses, but like I said, I promised I wouldn't bore you by watching me blend and blend and blend. But I am going to show you. Oh, it looks so good. Okay. So you can see it has a very spreadable consistency, very similar to a frosting. That's the best way that I could describe it. However, after you freeze it, after you put it in the refrigerator, it definitely firms up. And this I've had in the refrigerator overnight, and it's pliable, but it isn't super, it's not like melting in my hands the way that you couldn't really form into a ball. This you could, and if you wanted to, you can make truffles with this, and I put it in the refrigerator, then roll it maybe in some powdered sugar, roll it in some extra cocoa powder, maybe a little cinnamon if you like that chocolate and cinnamon, and then put it in the freezer for a little bit, and then you have some nice avocado chocolate truffles. So a couple of different ways that you can use it. And I said that we saved our lovely shell of an avocado, because if you want to be super cute and fancy, I'm just going to I used an ice cream scoop to scoop this out yesterday. So I'm just going to take a couple of scoops. I've gotten very used to getting chocolate all over my hands as I've made this. So if you want to, and again, you want to scrape the avocado out, but you can make these little avocado boats. Take the sticker off, and you could kind of put your 3 scoops in there, sprinkle a little powdered sugar on top, even do a little whipped cream or maybe non-dairy whip if you're going that route with it, and just have a little fun with how you serve it to kind of, if you want to let people know the avocado's in there. Sometimes with things like this, or, your black bean brownies, you sometimes want to, kind of sneak it into your audience and not let them know what they're eating, and then they eat it and you go, guess what? There was avocado in there. And they'll be shocked. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe, which again, I think is perfect for Valentine's Day. And thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you check out the recipe shop at ShopRite.com for more recipes to inspire you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.